Hi, I'm Dana with Diggin In with Dana, and I have a very special guest with me today. This is Jason Smith, and you have quite the story, and I'm so excited to get to hear all about your story that we're going to talk about. But I think I'll just let you go ahead and tell a little bit about you and how this got started, because
Sure.
this is so fascinating and everybody needs to know. So hit us with it.
Yeah,
How about
well,
that?
well, thank you so much for having me on. I
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity to come and share a little bit about myself, my story, the project that I'm working on. So for me, I worked 15 years as a paramedic,
Okay.
and one of my stations for 5 years was literally a mile and a half up the road here. So I served the citizens of Scottsdale for a third of my career, and then all the other cities in the valley as well. And a part of my job was really dealing with the homeless community on a day-to-day basis, with their crises and medical emergencies and whatever that may be. Well, back in 2016, just a few miles from here, I was in a major ambulance crash.
Oh, okay.
My partner and I, we were sitting waiting to make a turn. This guy that was high on cocaine blew through the light going 85 miles an hour, T-boned a car right in front of us, and they came and hit us and pushed us back about 15 feet, bounced off us, and hit another vehicle.
Oh, my gosh.
I was injured in that accident. I got out. I rendered care to as many people as I could until other folks got there. But really, from that, at that point, I had been working for 13 years on an ambulance. I had seen hundreds of fatalities. For myself, I was dealing deeply with PTSD.
Yeah.
And I was dealing
Can
with,
imagine.
with that continual trauma just from that accident.
Yeah.
I've probably been on 1,000 car crashes before, and that was probably the top three worst scenes that I had ever seen. So it was tormenting me,
And you were involved.
and I was
The
involved.
worst scenes,
I
but
did.
you were part of it. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. I was
bet.
involved, and so from accidents sometimes come settlement checks, and I got a little settlement check. I got about $10,000. And I thought, what is one way that I can maximize this $10,000 to bring healing to my life and then maybe inspire others to live a little bit better life themselves? And so I decided that I was going to buy this old crappy van, and I was originally just going to convert it into something that I could take out camping.
Yeah.
That I could get out in nature and experience some healing and just release that way. But as I built up this van, I thought, man, this thing would be fun to take on a road trip.
Yeah.
And then it kind of took more of a life of its own. So I started this page on Facebook called Jason's Most Excellent Van Adventures. I did. Yeah. So people could watch me build this van, but then more came to it as I continued to build this van up. I thought, you know what? I'm gonna go on the road and I'm gonna film a documentary.
And you quit being a paramedic
I
at that
did.
time because
I did. So
Of all
so I decided that I was going to quit my job and I was going to live homeless for 6 months.
okay,
And I was going to film the experience
in the van.
in the van. And so the whole goal of the project was to see just how far I could go funded only off the kindness of others. I wanted to see how kind we were to one another throughout the country. And then I wanted to highlight issues in the homeless community as I faced them and then as others told me their stories along the way.
Yeah.
And so it took about a year's time to really prep and plan for this. I put in for a leave of absence with my job. They had approved it. And then about a month before I was set to go, our company was bought by another company and they said, we're not doing it anymore. And so I said, you know what? I've already invested too much time into this. I've already started my healing process. I quit.
Yeah.
So I quit my job.
Yeah.
And so April 1st, 2018, it was April Fool's Day, also Easter Sunday.
Oh, okay.
I set out on the road, and I started right in Goodyear with $0, just me, my cameraman, and my van. And in that half a year's time, I was able to travel to 42 states, pretty much every major U.S. city, and over 17,500 miles of travel, all funded off the kindness of others. I would panhandle,
yeah.
and I let myself go. So I let myself integrate into the homeless community. I used, shelter services and food banks and shelter or the homeless shelters. Whatever service was available, I tried to use that so that I could really live in that experience.
Yeah.
I didn't use any of my money for any of the travel at all. So with the money that I made, because all the camera work was hidden, because the goal was to capture people truly, genuinely giving because they wanted to out of the kindness of their heart.
Not because they were being filmed.
Not because they're being
Yeah.
filmed. They had no idea. We were in Iowa. My cameraman's sitting in a cornfield shooting through the corn, Or there's other moments where they're laying in some bushes. You'd have no idea that,
Yeah.
that you were
That they
being
were even
filmed.
there. Yeah.
So we captured hundreds and hundreds of interactions of all walks of life giving to me along the way. But with the funds that I made, I used it for three things, really. One was for gas because I needed to get on down the road.
Yeah.
The other was for food if I needed to supplement my food. And then last but not least was I wanted to pay it forward and continue to help folks out of the abundance that I had.
Yeah.
So we were able to buy tents for homeless folks. We were able to buy one gentleman, we bought him a bicycle and everything to get back on the road because that was his way of life. We bought people food, gas cans, shelter, whatever their need was in that moment. We would try to address that with what we had.
Yeah.
And so it's a powerful project.
Yeah, it's amazing and courageous at the same time because you actually, I'm sure, have risked your life in certain circumstances as you were going along traveling, correct?
I did.
I
did.
I can't imagine that there weren't some sort of danger that you were
There was definitely danger. So I can tell you in the project, I was detained by the police a dozen times because panhandling is illegal.
Ah.
I was assaulted and robbed by other folks because in the film you'll see there's this guy sitting across the street stalking me. And as soon as he saw...
He is a homeless person
Nope,
as well?
Nope,
oh.
He was not homeless.
Oh, okay.
He was
just some thug or something, huh?
Yeah. He was a gangbanger in Albuquerque.
Oh, wow.
And it's incredible. You're watching the film back, like afterwards, and you see this guy sitting across the street stalking me and watching me.
Yeah.
And waiting for several people to give me money because now he knows that I have it.
Oh.
And then you can see him in the film get up and walk across the street and then go out of picture, and then all of a sudden he's charging me. He's trying to rob me and assault me.
Oh my gosh.
It was very, very dangerous areas. We were in everywhere that you could think of. Skid Row in LA, the Tenderloin in San Francisco, 8 Mile in Detroit, like some of the roughest of roughest places that you could ever imagine. I tried to experience it to one degree or another.
And how would you find these places that they conglomerate or whatever? Is that something that you just learned as being on the road? Like, is there a certain area of town that you would go to? Or is it just anywhere?
Well, homelessness is everywhere.
Everywhere,
It is.
right.
It's in big towns, it's in small towns, medium towns, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But typically where I would try and find it is when I was looking through my resources, I would try and find like a soup kitchen or a shelter.
Okay, that's
because
what I
that's
was wondering.
typically, the area where you're going to find
Yeah.
the majority of that population.
Yeah.
So like here in downtown Phoenix, we have over on Madison and 10th Avenue, we've got our Cass homeless shelter there.
Yeah.
And there's over 1,000 homeless folks that live in tents right along the streets.
Yeah.
And there's a major lawsuit that had just happened with the businesses that sued the city over the homeless problem that's down there, because they no longer have the ability to function and do business. And so it's definitely gotten out of hand pretty much everywhere, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So you learned a lot of stories about folks that are homeless, I'm sure.
I did, yeah.
Tell me some of the things that you might have experienced with that. Like, just because I'm sure they all have a story, they just didn't wake up and be homeless one day. I'm sure it's something that has led them to that part of their life, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about us as people. You think about yourself when you're 10, 11 years old and you're in school.
Yeah.
And your teacher says, Dana, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
You never said that you wanted to be homeless, struggling
Right.
on the street. All right. And the same goes to those folks. Those were our classmates and our friends.
Yeah.
But something was a catalyst in their life that led them down that path. For one gal that I met, she was 23 years old and she was in Portland, Oregon. And when I was talking to her, I said, well, tell me what your pathway to homelessness is. And she said, well, when I was 10, I became homeless with my mom. And when I was in my teenage years, she put me on drugs and would prostitute me out. And she would do that in order for us to have money to survive or get whatever we needed.
Yeah.
I had another guy, he was in the military. And when he was 19 years old, he was shipped off overseas for an 18-month tour over in Germany. Uh-huh. And while he was there, his commanding officer sexually assaulted him on a very regular basis. So when he came back to the U.S. and got out of the military, he was somewhat productive in society. He worked on TV shows. as like a set hand type guy.
Uh-huh.
But the demons of that just overtook him, and he fell into alcohol and then homelessness. And he was homeless for a big chunk of time.
Yeah.
But he was finally able to get services through the VA to come out of that.
Oh, that's
So
good.
everybody's pathway is a little bit different.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. They all have a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there with your documentary, it's a film that's coming out and everybody can come and see it, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's
So
not just here, it's going to be other places that it's going to be shown too, right?
Yep. So I do have our first showing. We're going to call it the world premiere.
Yeah.
Make it sound really fancy.
Yeah.
It's going to be set for June 4th, Sunday, here in downtown Phoenix at Arizona Financial Theater.
Yeah.
It's going to be free to the public. We will take sponsorship from anybody that wants to help contribute financially for that event, or also donations that will then give back to some of these programs that help our folks that are local here in need.
Yeah.
And with that, the doors will open at 1. It'll start at 2 o'clock. Show's about is about 2 hours 5 minutes long. But it's a really good documentary from start to finish.
Yeah. So tell me something that has stuck with you from that experience, like something that's changed you. Is there anything in particular that happened or that you have made different in your life now from your experience?
Yeah, so I think for me, just being more self-aware of myself and being open to the opportunity to give and to help.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're not prepared. And the opportunity to give and to help, it can come and go really quick. And if we're not prepared for that opportunity, then you're not able to give. These folks that are homeless, they're our neighbors.
Yeah.
They live in our community. If you and I live next to each other and you had a flat tire and said, Jason, can you help me? I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
If this homeless folk or person, whatever, needs help, you're going to find a way maybe to help them because they are your neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were in the experience and out there living that life day to day, what did you do to engage with them? Were people friendly to you? Was the homeless community like friendly to you, welcoming you as being one of them now, or do they put a wall up to people like strangers?
Well,
Because I always wonder that, like when I see a bunch of them, in a group or whatever, if I went up and wanted to help or wanted to give or something, would they be accepting of that, or would they be like stranger danger? You know what I mean?
it's definitely a tight-knit community.
I thought it was.
Where those folks tend to take care of one another.
Yeah.
So I was in Greenville, South Carolina, and I was staying at a Walmart parking lot for the night. And from about 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, I started to notice more cars were pulling in and parking all around me. And I realized this is the local homeless population that live out of their vehicles.
Ah.
Well, one guy pulled up in his truck and got out and put like 5 pizzas up on the front of his truck. And everybody got out and walked over and began to eat pizza off of the front of his truck.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what is going on here?
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock at night. Well, the guy was homeless, but he had a job at a pizza shop. And at the end of the night, if there was any, leftover pizzas or whatever, he was allowed to take those with him. And so they had built their own community right there.
Yeah.
And they were taking care of one another.
Yeah.
And so I saw that opportunity to, hey, maybe I can come over and have a conversation. And I did. And I stood around the vehicles with these guys, and we had pizzas, and we talked. So they were very accepting and open to me. But it also depends on what type of person you're dealing with.
Yeah.
A large chunk of our homeless community, something like 70%, has mental illness or drug addiction or a combination of both.
Yeah.
And that's really tough, because how do you have an intelligible conversation with somebody that can't even answer basic questions?
Yeah.
And that's tough. So it's very hard to integrate into that aspect of things.
Yeah.
But when you do find folks that do have somewhat of a sound mind, that are just below that poverty level, struggling, and that's their way of homelessness, it's easier to interact with that community. But once it starts to get down, the mental illness, drug addiction side of it, becomes very hard.
Oh, I bet it does.
It does,
I bet.
yeah.
So you say 70% of the homeless have those sort of issues, like addiction and mental illness.
There's a ton of studies out there that
Yeah.
will point towards percentages, And the overall general consensus is at least 70%
Yeah, that's
have one
huge.
form or another.
Yeah.
You know, folks that are on, think about people that are schizophrenic.
Yeah.
That's a very hard person to deal with.
Right.
And they might not have the family support and structure. So what do? They end up on the street. They have an episode. They're a danger to themselves, danger to the community. They then they're put into a facility for short-term rehabilitation, and then they're discharged where? Back out on the
Back down the
street.
street.
So it's just this continual cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. So, did you meet anyone in particular that you have stayed in contact with, or anything like that? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have a great friend from this project. His name's John Peck.
Okay.
And I met John at a truck stop somewhere between Minnesota and Iowa. And John's featured in the film. His story is incredible. I mean, he is very philosophical, very smart, but he had been homeless for about 15 years at that point. And his way of homelessness was he would travel on a bicycle going from place to place to place to place. And just prior to that, he was in Oregon, and his bicycle and all of his belongings had been stolen from him. And he was hitchhiking back towards the East Coast, and that's where I happened to meet him. And John and I had this conversation, and it was just powerful, mind-blowing. But then he had told me, you know what, I think I actually want to head back towards Sturgis, South Dakota, because, the bike rally's coming up. I know I can get a temporary job there to make money in order to buy myself a new bike and gear and get back on the road. And so I said, well, I'm going to be heading that way probably in a week and a half. I might be there. We'll see if we can, meet up. And so about a week and a half later, sure enough, we're right in the same area. But at that point, he had a run of bad luck. He got sick, wasn't feeling well. He had gotten a job working at the VFW hall, but was having some problems like getting back and forth to that job each day. So it just really wasn't working out. So what he and I did is he was panhandling and trying to raise funds is what he had called it. And his philosophy and approach was much different. He goes, I'm not trying to just take, I'm also trying to give.
Yeah.
If I'm out here just continually taking, I'm not doing anybody a service. I'm greedy.
Yeah.
I need to give, but all I have to give is a smile and a wave and joy. So that's what he would do. He would smile and wave at people, tell people to have a happy Saturday. Well, what I did was I did a Facebook Live video, and I had a few hundred followers watching, and I said, hey, this is John. This is his story. His bike was stolen. Can you guys partner with me to help, raise some funds? And within a matter of minutes, we had several $100s.
Oh, wow.
And so when I told John, he was just so excited, blown away.
Yeah.
We took him back into town. We went to this place. He got a bicycle, got it all fully set up, and we parted ways. Well, then a month later, that bike was stolen.
Oh, gosh.
So what do? I loved John so much. We raised more money, got him another bike.
Yeah.
He was on that bike for about 3.5 years, put probably 18,000 miles on it, rode it coast to coast a couple times.
Oh, my goodness.
And John and I are still friends.
Yeah.
Late last year, I believe it was, he was in Vegas, and he was hit by a car, and that bike was totaled and destroyed, and he had shattered his ankle and had to have surgery and, kind of get back on the mend. But John and I, over the years, have stayed connected.
Yeah.
And whenever he's through the area, anywhere in Arizona, I always meet him, and we always spend some time together. So I do have a meaningful relationship that came out of that.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, this guy has nothing but time. He's on the road riding around. He's thinking about things. He's viewing nature and forming new thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
And then he's like imparting that knowledge into me, and it's just so valuable.
Yeah.
It's so valuable because we live these really busy lives where we don't have enough time to take away to gain and learn and earn new perspective.
Exactly.
But John's the one doing it, and he's sharing these things with me that just blow my mind every time I have a conversation with him.
Yeah. Because you just get wrapped up in day to day, and you don't think about the small things that he's probably thinking about all the time.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference.
Yeah.
It's valuable for somebody to be that way.
Well, I think we as people, we're just so inundated with our schedules.
Yes.
And our schedules, I think, are potentially a pathway to homelessness.
Yeah.
Like when you really think about it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about just a couple things that I wrote down today.
Yeah.
I want to talk about kind of how we can hedge ourselves maybe from the possibilities of homelessness, you know.
Yeah.
Each and every day we get up, we look at our cell phone, and we're inundated with ads. We hop on the TV, ads. We hop in our car and drive to work. We're listening and hearing ads. Everybody's selling to us each and every day.
Yeah.
It's just nothing but consumerism and consumerism and consumerism. Buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. Consumerism in itself is not bad, but overindulgence of consumerism is.
Yeah.
Because now you don't have the ability to save and put away money. You don't have the ability to invest and really build a hedge around you.
Yeah.
You don't. And so I think about a guy that that I had met when I was in San Antonio, and he was in his late 50s. And I asked him, well, Mark, what was your pathway to homelessness? And he said, well, one night my wife woke me up and wanted me to go to the store and get her some beer, but I had to go to work in the morning. I told her no. She came in and she stabbed me.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he showed me he had a big scar on his chest. He definitely was stabbed. She came in and stabbed me. And so he ended up in the hospital for 3 months. And by the time he was released from the hospital, his savings was gone. He was evicted from his home, and he had nothing.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not saying his problem was overindulgence in consumerism, but he didn't have anything to fall back on.
Yeah.
You know, do we really need to have 20, 30, 40 pairs of shoes and all these extra things in our lives? It's a waste of money, and it's setting you up potentially for some failure.
Yeah.
And so for him, that was a really big deal. He just could not get out of that lifestyle at that point. You know, he didn't want to live with his wife anymore. You know,
Yeah,
would
she
you want to live with
stabbed him.
somebody? Yeah, no, not
She
at all.
must have really wanted that beer, huh?
She definitely did. But you know, this is such a huge topic and
yeah.
issue.
Yeah, it is.
When we talk about homelessness, it is a huge topic and issue, and people don't realize how big of a problem it is.
Right.
I think for me, where do we start? Where do we start with the problem? I think we've got to put the cork in the bottle and find a way to prevent people essentially from entering homelessness.
Yeah.
Because each and every day, more and more folks are entering homelessness. Well, when you enter that, it becomes harder to come out of that because now you have more issues and things that you need to have dealt with.
Yeah.
Right. So if we have preventativeness into that lifestyle, I think that's a great way to start.
Yeah.
Because now you're turning off the flow. You're making it a lot easier. I think if we shift money from the effect of homelessness towards the cause, I think that that is a great start. Let me give you an example. I was in Skid Row in LA, which is probably our most famous homeless population that we all know about.
Right.
And the city had did this study to determine how much money they were spending per year to maintain every square mile. And outside of Skid Row, they were spending about $110,000 per year to maintain each square mile. That would be taking care of the roads, sanitation, whatever. Inside Skid Row, where there's 10,000 homeless folks, they were spending $5.5 million per square mile. So that's an astronomical amount of money that's going just to maintain an area. And when you go through there, you're going to find that there's sanitation workers that are making folks, pack up their camp and move to the next road over because now they got to go through there and clean all the feces and urine and drug paraphernalia. And they're pulling bodies out of there.
Oh, my gosh.
Every day they're pulling bodies out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge, huge issue. We are allocating a lot of funds towards the effect. What happens when we turn it towards the cause and start keeping people from even entering that lifestyle?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a lot that can be done to help that is just not being recognized. There's a lot of great ideas that I'm involved with some charities and stuff, and everybody wants to raise the money, but where does the money go?
Yeah.
And I just think there's so much more that could be done to help, and being that we have a lot of homelessness right here in town.
We do.
People kind of just drive by, or if they are involved and they want to help, then it's taking time away from their day to do it. So you have to find those certain people too.
You do. So, I mean, one thing that I really felt deeply when I was on the road was that I just felt like I was just another tree in the park. I felt like I was just a part of the scenery.
Yeah.
When you integrate into some of these communities, you're just another part of the scenery. Passerbyers just keep going right on by you.
Yeah.
They don't even give you a look in the eye and a smile.
Yeah.
And sometimes for me, a look in the eye, a smile, and a wave was the best thing I could get in that entire day.
Yeah.
Because I felt so lonely and sad and afraid and just on my own.
Yeah.
And just having just those little interactions of kindness, to me, that was worth more than getting a $10 bill.
Yeah.
Just being recognized as a human being was so important.
Right.
And I mean, it's all over. It's right here.
Yeah.
It
is.
It's in this community right here.
It sure is. More and more. You see more and more people.
You do. I mean, how do you even begin to address this from a political standpoint? The problem is so out of hand that if any politician was to try and step into it, they might be walking into the lion's den of political suicide.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's such a hot button topic.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I've been down to like the Cass Homeless Shelter, and I've talked to some of the folks down there and other agencies, and they tell me, that they cannot function at the capacity that they want to because they are bound by old and outdated laws.
Oh, yeah.
Old and outdated laws that have not been updated, that are no longer relevant to today.
Yeah.
So that's an issue.
Yeah.
That's an issue if our politicians aren't out there being advocates. And when you really think about it, what it really comes down to, if that homeless person is living in your jurisdiction, that's your constituent.
Yeah.
And you're elected. You're an elected official to take care of your constituents in your jurisdiction.
Right.
So if you are turning a blind eye to that in your jurisdiction, you're not doing your job.
Right.
So that in and of itself is a huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that could open a whole bunch of new conversations that should be had, but is being ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share with us about, like, any of the experiences or anything coming down the pipeline? What's going on with you now?
Well, I think for me now that I'm out of working as a paramedic, out of, doing the film project, now I work in home loans. And I do home loans with Fairway Mortgage. And I use that as an opportunity to help folks hedge and protect themselves from maybe entering into a homeless situation.
Right.
Because when you think about it, at the end of the day, having your housing stabilized is one of the most important things that you can have.
Right.
If you're a forever renter, you're forever going to be paying somebody else's dream. You're forever subjected to rising rental rates.
Yes.
But if you buy now, you're hedging yourself against that.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Over the last 81 years, home values have gone up 73 times. That's a 90% chance that home values are going to go up year over year over year over year.
Yeah.
So if you're not buying and you're waiting, well, then guess what? You're only going to be paying more.
Yeah.
You're only locking in your cost of living at a higher level down the road.
Yeah.
You can always refinance when those rates come lower. But if you're not, then you're putting yourself in a position where you have no control, no say. You're a forever renter. I think about the first apartment that I rented here in Phoenix back in 2012. It was a one-bedroom apartment, not a very nice place. I was paying about $450 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. I recently looked at how much those one-bedrooms are now. They're over $1,800. $1,800.
Yeah. Average is $2,500 a month to rent.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Then what did I do after that? I went and I bought my first home. And my first home was a 4-bed, 3-bath, 3-car garage and a pool. And my monthly payment was $1,100 a month.
Yeah.
And I've used that home ownership to leverage multiple times, to get ahead multiple times. And now I've leveraged that into some more investments. And now I've got a couple Airbnbs, we've got a rental, and that covers our entire cost of living. And we've done that through home ownership.
Yeah.
So my passion now is to help bring people with me.
Yeah.
To help educate my community, my friends, my family of, hey, what can we do to hedge and protect yourself so that you can live a strong, healthy life from start to finish? when I was on the road, I met this gal. She was 65 years old, I believe. Her husband of 30 years had passed away, and they were living in a home for 30 years together. And she couldn't afford it, so the home was foreclosed upon. So now she was living homeless in a truck.
Oh my gosh.
How do we prevent you towards the end of your life from living homeless in a vehicle?
Right.
We got to start now.
Yeah.
We've got to start now by taking control of what is in front of us. I mean, in the last couple of years, we've seen this home values just skyrocket. And if you were a renter, it is tight, because now just to get into even a starter home in not the nicest area of town, it might be over $300,000.
Right.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make more than you ever did before in order to just have a basic level of living. And I think that's where my new passion is.
To help people
Is helping as many
set up.
folks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is helping as many folks as I can come out of that and stabilize their basic cost of living, and then educating them on how can we leverage this to the next thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my mission now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
You quite the story.
I appreciate that.
Quite the story. I'm super proud to know you, because that is something that people just kind of maybe just brush it off or take for granted, you know, the circumstances of other people in the way that they live.
Yeah.
And you just kind of get wrapped up in your own day-to-day stuff. And
We do.
You know, I feel like there's so much that could be done. Is there something in particular that you know that a person could do today to help make a difference to somebody who's homeless? Like, was there one thing that really stuck out besides just a smile or a wave? Anything else that you saw while you were out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think just first off, treating people as people, and
Just being kind,
and just
right?
being kind. That was the whole goal of the project, miles of kindness.
Kindness, yes.
How can we be kind? It doesn't matter what that person did or their circumstance or situation. You can still be nice to them.
Yeah.
You can still be kind and give them a smile. You don't have to give people money. You can give people your time.
Yeah.
And we often forget about that. But there is plenty of great organizations here locally that do help folks that are on the brink of poverty or in poverty, in homelessness. It's great to give to those organizations. Hopefully we can have some legislation changes that make it so that they're not bound by red tape and old outdated laws. But here's kind of one take that I've had from working in the healthcare setting, right? Is that these folks that are on the street dealing with mental illness and drug addiction, they're not alert and oriented. They're not able to have necessarily conversations where they can tell you person, place, time, and event. All right. If you were a diabetic and your blood sugar went low and somebody called 911 and I came and you were not able to answer these questions, because of the law of implied consent, have the ability to treat you and take care of you. Because what the law of implied consent says is that anybody of reasonable thinking would want to be helped in that position.
Okay.
So now we have all these folks that are on the street struggling with mental illness and drug addiction. They're not alert and oriented. They definitely didn't want to be on the street, but they are. I think we need to maybe revisit some of these laws of implied consent, and use that to help pull people out rather than just sitting on the sidelines and allowing more people to enter into that way of life and allowing those folks to continue on. Because let's face it, I mean, folks that, I'm going to pull up my note here because I had a pretty good point. I mean, these folks that are homeless with these issues, they have self-destructive behavior, or they have dangerous behaviors.
Right.
Right. And it's not necessarily that they're going to come out and do something to you, but it's to themselves.
Yeah.
And when you have dangerous behaviors, you have stories like this. I was working as a young EMT in Olympia, Washington. Late one night, two homeless guys broke into the back of a restaurant and they stole the king salmon, and they were fighting over the salmon in the parking lot there, and one ripped it out of the guy's hands and hit him in the face and knocked him to the ground, messed his face up. He had a skull fracture. These guys were, exhibiting dangerous behavior towards one another. I think just 2 or 3 blocks from here, I was working on my ambulance one night, and this homeless guy was intoxicated, stumbled into the street, and was hit by a car and thrown into a bus stop. So what did I do? I go to that call and I find him and his face is crushed. So what do I have to do? I cut his throat on the sidewalk and put a breathing tube. It's dangerous behavior.
Yeah.
It all goes back to that. I think of another guy who was intoxicated one night, sleeping next to his campfire, and rolled into the campfire and burned to death. You know, his friends had found him and tried to pull him out, but it was just too late. Another guy, he was a homeless guy, and this was in Yuma. He fell asleep between two semi-trailers, like early in the morning, and by 11 o'clock, the sun was up. It was over 100 degrees, and now he had second-degree burns all over his body from the direct exposure to the sun and the concrete.
Yeah.
If stories like that don't make you feel humanity,
Yeah.
then you are a part of the issue.
Yeah.
All right. There's like people want statistics and data. I don't need to provide you that. I need to provide you with these stories. And I'm just one person sharing, just a couple stories. I have many more.
Yeah.
Go talk to any other EMS provider that works out on the street, and they're going to give you their set of stories.
Oh, yeah.
And so if those things don't inspire you to try and be involved to one degree or another, like, why are you even here? Because this is our community. These are our neighbors.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to the fact that, we grew up with these folks. These guys played on our Little League teams, graduated high school with us.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, they fell off and we forgot about them.
Yeah.
So let's do what we can to raise them out of that.
Yeah. So your event that's coming up, that when the movie comes out, it doesn't cost anything to go to it.
Correct.
How are you going to raise money, and where are you going to put the money that you would raise? So if people just can donate when they walk in, probably.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm going to have a few outlets for that.
Okay.
I'm going to be taking sponsorships.
Okay.
Because there is an actual cost to the event. Nothing is free.
Real sure.
I do have to pay the venue, but they're doing it at very, very low cost.
Yeah.
Usually it's like $50,000 just to have an event there. They're doing it for $2,000.
Yeah.
For the space, and then the staffing, and then renting of a screen. So, there is some cost to that.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna take sponsorships. For every $100, I'm gonna give you a ticket, and you'll be able to join the after show cocktail party that's up on the stage, that's behind the screen, kind of a little meet and greet. If we do $500, you'll get a corporate sponsor recognition before the event itself. So all that sponsorship money will help go towards paying for the event. And then anything that we make beyond that, including our charitable donations, we're going to give out to all the organizations that are here locally helping folks. So I don't want a dime.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to profit anything off of this. I got everything I needed out of it, which was an incredible life change.
Right.
An incredible experience, an experience that nobody else will ever get.
Right.
So that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Now I get to share this with the world. And if there's an opportunity to put some financial reward behind it, I want to put that money towards good use and towards helping folks. Really, if I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, helping folks get to a better place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I mean, this is fascinating. It's an incredible story. You're doing great things, and I'm sure it was life-changing to do this. And
absolutely,
I see nothing but great coming for you too. I mean,
definitely appreciate that.
Can't help but fall in love with the whole situation and want to help when you talk to you.
Yeah.
So it's something I think a lot of people are going to benefit from, just getting your story out there. And if we can help just a little bit, we sure will.
I think so. We are a community of people, and we're only as strong as our weakest link. We already know that.
Yeah.
So if we can help come together and bring more people out of those types of situations, we're only going to be better.
Yeah.
We're only going to be better.
Sure.
And we're only going to hedge and protect ourselves maybe from entering that situation. So I know that's a reality that I don't care to have.
Right.
I don't care for my nieces and nephews to have that reality.
Yeah.
Or for anybody in this room to have that reality. Or anybody listening today to have that reality.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hopefully everybody will pitch in and help a little bit. Any little bit will help.
Yeah.
And everybody is invited. We'll make sure and post a link for the event so people can go and check it out. But thank you so much for coming and sharing with me, because it means an awful lot to be able to be part of that.
I definitely
just to be able to
appreciate the
hear
opportunity.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see you all next time. I'm Dana with Jason Smith here, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.